All right. Welcome everybody to today's Content Stack Fireside chat. My name is Sonia. I'll be your host today. And I work for Content Stack, the most loved headless CMS by editors and developers alike, publicly endorsed. And that is all I will say about Content Stack today. A few housekeeping items before we start. You'll see that the lines are all muted. That's because we're quite a crowd, which is fantastic. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions for Christy, please use the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. If you have any challenges, any technical issues, any questions, please turn to the chat and our host team will help you out. All right, and also this is being recorded, so you can share it with friends and family and colleagues afterwards. Right, let's get going. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are today. We do have a quite international setting here. I'm super happy to introduce Freeletics to you. Now, this is a company that has grown insanely over the last 7 years, founded in 2013. Freeletics has seriously disrupted the lifestyle and fitness industry. Today, it's the leading provider of AI-based fitness and lifestyle coaching, and we will learn a little bit more about what exactly that is from Christy in a second. 48 million active users and a clothing line. 48 million, I researched that, is a fourth of the US adult population, so that is a lot of active members, all on the back of a bootstrapped growth path, which I think is fascinating. 165 employees. This app is running in 175 countries and in 10 languages. And how exactly the team is running that, we will now hear from the wonderful Christy Cleveland, fantastic woman in tech, senior product owner at Freeletics. And Christy, you're joining us from Munich, actually, which is very international in itself. Welcome. Who are you, Christy? I have unmuted you, I believe.
There we go. Thank you. Hey. Hi, good evening from Munich. I think, as you can tell, I'm not actually German. I just live in Munich. And this is Annie, for anyone who's wondering. My good luck charm, my Dachshund, as Americans call them, Dockles here in Germany. So
that is very German of you, though.
Yes. Well, you know, this was pretty much, it was a sign when Freeletics found me. I was like, I have a Dockel. I'm ready to move to Munich. I'm prepared. So yeah, she's got a lot of similar friends around here. She also really loves face licks. So
she does.
Now that we've introduced her, she's going to go to her bed down here so that I can have a conversation with you.
Hi, Annie.
All right, there you go, little girl. Crotchety old lady. All right.
Oh, you're already getting Annie love in the chat, Christy. I think you've already won hearts. Well done.
She's my secret weapon. She's my secret weapon. Everyone loves Annie.
So, Christy, what are you up to at Freeletics? And actually, where did you come from before? Because I think that's also very interesting.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Southern California. And prior to working at Freeletics, I worked at Blizzard Entertainment. I worked in Overwatch League, which is their esports, professional esports franchise. And then before that, I worked at Disney, and I started working on what they consider their content websites, Oh My Disney and Disney Style, Disney Family, and then moved over to work on all of the Lucasfilm websites, including StarWars.com, and worked on the Star Wars product there. Before that, I was doing analytics, I did platform development, I did social media, I've done e-commerce, I've done growth, I've done pretty much everything you can imagine in product management. So, yeah,
so you've seen the full digital experience spectrum, really, and are bringing that now all together.
Yeah. And to be perfectly honest, I really enjoyed everything I've done with product, but content is my passion. I fell in love with it at Disney. They hired me because I had a background in creative writing and done a little bit of content product management before that. And it really all came together there. And I've been chasing content ever since. So, yeah.
And you know, I find that very fascinating for this conversation that you both have the product owner, the technical background, and the content. You kind of merge the best of both worlds in one person. So, AI coaching, what is that? How does that work?
Okay, I'm going to try and make this easily digestible for a diverse audience. So, what we call our coach algorithm, it's based on human augmented AI. That's the approach that we take. And that means that we respond to feedback and we respond really, I guess you could say, to the human condition. So for the more technical people who are interested in AI and the mathematics behind it, we use a causal interference modeling with data mining techniques. And we use those to generate personalized training experiences based on user data and then our algorithms that we've created. So to maybe expand just a tiny bit more and give people more context, we use really a wide range of data to optimize everything that a user experiences in Freeletics. And our goal is to make that make all of your workouts smarter and better each time you use it, but not just you, but every other user, because you are placed in a segmentation. And so every time anyone uses it, you know, our algorithm is learning to make your experience a lot better. So that's pretty much the gist of it.
And as a user, I can say you do. And it's really exhausting. It's not, I thought, ooh, I'll just download this fitness app and, you know, I'll do a few moves. But oh boy, it does work, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the things I really, really like about our company is that we don't lie to you and say like, hey, you're gonna get a beach body next week, right? You really have to put in the work and you really have to be committed. And also that's something that you really see in the people that work at Freeletics. We put in a lot of hard work and we are really committed to what we do. So it's this really great environment where like the culture really reflects the product. And then there's this one review that we had. It was absolutely the best, and when it was from a German company, and they said that they described us as the Protestant workout ethic, and I was like, that's genius. That's totally us. It
Yeah,
was very,
as
very
being a
clever.
German, I can say that is a compliment coming from a German. Fantastic. So we wanted to talk a little bit about localization, right? And I think my first question to you is in an app world that is mostly dominated by English speaking apps, why
Mm.
was localizing for Freeletics so important?
I mean, first and foremost, it goes back to our users' needs. We really need to take into account their different needs, and that includes their cultural differences. And so that's why localization is really important to us. I think on another level, we're a really international company. I mean, I work with people from all over the world. When I say all over the world, I do mean that literally. It's, you know, of course, like we're based in Munich, so we have a lot of Germans working there, but like, you know, we just really have a diverse mindset and diverse opinions. And once again, I think that's just reflected back into, you know, our strategy and our product too.
So when you set out to build your technology infrastructure, um, you you were there pretty much from the get-go, I understand, with a few um, players being set. What made Freeletics choose modern technology, the headless, the SaaS, the Mac ecosystem?
Um, so that was pretty much me causing trouble. Um, and so I started at Freeletics in May 2019. And the first thing I did was really start to evaluate where my team was. And my team, we're the web team. We handle the website. We handle payment processing through our payment processors that are non-app stores. And you know, looking at how we were doing everything, I saw a lot of really great ways that we could improve. And one was that we had a headless CMS. but we were only using it for the blog. And I was like, man, like we're not doing any sort of content management. This is really inefficient. You know, we're slow. We're not able to like really meet our users' needs. We're not able to respond to trends really quickly in the marketplace. And so, you know, I set out to evaluate, like, is this doing what it needs to do for us? And can we expand the CMS? And, you know, we realized it's not meeting our needs. So I started doing an evaluation of other headless CMSs, and we came to Content Stack. But really, I think my journey with learning about a headless CMS goes back to Blizzard, where there too we needed a CMS. We had a proprietary in-house built one there, and it was not scaling. And so we needed to find something. And I was a firm believer, and I still am, of like, don't build things that are not your core competencies. If you're a business, yeah, they just buy a third party because they're the experts at it. So, you know, Blizzard, gaming company, not a CMS company. Freeletics, fitness company, not a CMS company. So, you know, let's stay focused on our core competence and get the support that we need. And so, you know, like I really got an education on CMSs while at Blizzard, and that was where I first got introduced to Content Stack. And so I carried over a lot of those learnings to Freeletics. And so that really led our inquiries into, you know, what the best technology would be for us to really begin to scale our content delivery.
And when you say content delivery, what channels does that include today? You mentioned the blog.
Oh yeah. So right now it's just the website or blog, right? However, my team is working on completing a prototype for managing our audio content in app. And to be really clear, because a lot of people probably aren't familiar with Freeletics, what we do is not just fitness. We have exercises, and we have awesome journeys that take you through weeks to get you fit. And it's just a journey from start to finish for, like, you know, for learning how to run or learning how to weight lift, right, or weight loss, right. But we also have nutrition. So we help you learn how to eat better and eat right. And then we also have mindfulness content that, you know, helps you with, you know, athletic mindset, with stress, with sleeping better. And so we really have this whole package. And so, yeah, the prototype that my team is building is our mindfulness audio content that we're moving on to Content Stack. So.
Fantastic. I'm very excited to hear more about that. And I love the mindfulness aspect.
Thank you. We love it too.
So, yeah. So 80% productivity improvements on the content side. Tell us a little bit about how you got there.
Yeah. So the metric that we used to measure this was end-to-end cycle time, meaning from the time the work request hit my team, since when we received that request, to the time when it was on production live for users to see. Trying not to use a bunch of technical terms just in case. So, sorry, I live near a hospital. An ambulance going by. Sorry. So we set end-to-end cycle time to measure the length it took for us to do this work. And then that was my benchmark. And I was like, all right, this is what we've got to improve on. And the way that we were doing it was we were doing all bespoke web work for like pretty much everything. And, you know, you really should keep a lot of things bespoke, like, you know, your payment pages and, you know, parts of your conversion funnel should definitely, you know, stay hard coded, right? But there's so much that you can put into a CMS to reduce that dev effort and to, you know, to really speed up your delivery to users, to make really quick updates rather than like put in a request with the development team and then wait at least 2 weeks while they go through their sprint and then they finally update it if it gets prioritized, right? And getting yourself out of that cycle, even if it's an agile cycle, which agile is awesome, but it's not really awesome for marketers who have to wait. They should be able to do things a lot quicker. And so these were some of the pain points that we were dealing with. And so we moved things like when we run marketing campaigns, we moved those onto Content Stack. We have our homepage on Content Stack. We have our product pages where we describe training and nutrition on Content Stack. And so all of these things that were often needing updates and developers were having to do, we move these into a much more efficient way where marketing is empowered in the way that they need to be empowered to handle their portion of the business. And then my developers are empowered to really use their skills for things that are a lot more valuable and for growing the business. And so that's really how we ended up with our really great end-to-end cycle time metric, and it blew my executives away. So felt so
Sure
good.
it did.
And like my engineers were so happy too, because now they're doing things that they really want to do rather than updating content. And my marketing team, like one of the members of the team, I showed him how to use it, how to update these pages, and he's like, I want to do this all the time. Working in Content Stack is so fun. And I'm like, yes, I'm making people's lives better.
Yeah, and that is so interesting to hear, because often here, especially the marketing and the content users, a little concerned about adopting a headless mess because it's not the way we used to do things the last 30 years. How did introducing Content Stack, how did that resonate with the wider team there, business side?
With the business side, I think I
So the
really had
content
it.
and marketers
Yeah.
in this case.
Yeah, I really had it easy because we weren't really, the only place we were using a CMS was on our blog. And then our press pages had been sitting on WordPress for like a century. And, we moved those onto Content Stack as well, and gave, our PR team, a lot easier way to respond to, all the cool things happening with Freeletics. But I had it really easy. They were just really supportive. Like I work with someone from in marketing. Her name's Anetta, and she's been amazingly supportive of everything that we're doing. And like when we've needed a beta tester, she's been right there, beta testing and giving us fantastic feedback and making sure that, marketing is getting the representation that they need for the work that we're doing. And so I've had a really, I would say, enthusiastic and supportive marketing team for implementing all of this.
That is cool to hear. And if you are a marketer listening, maybe that's exactly the way you need to play it. Just dive right in there so that your needs are met and heard as well. Pretty clever of that lady, I would say. So you just mentioned the developers. And again, some statistics, you said almost 60% developer efficiency improved too. How did you do that? How did that go about?
It's very similar to the productivity. So that metric was actually the specific metric I used for that was cost effectiveness. So I was looking at how much money we were spending doing our work with the developers doing their bespoke hard coding work, as opposed to putting this on Content Stack. And so we had a 60% reduction in my team's operational costs. And I say very specifically my teams, because this is an incredibly conservative metric. This is just my team's work, my developers. I did not count my time spent on any of this work. I didn't count my UX designers' time spent. I didn't count legals. I didn't count content strategy, none of that. So I really think that the 60% cost that we save is probably a lot higher. And when I look at some of the things that we've moved to Content Stack that require going around and around and around about text and about images, I mean, yeah, we have definitely saved a lot of money there. And then also, really a lot of time. I think something like this really makes people feel so much more empowered with their job, which means it makes them feel valued. It makes them feel effective. It makes them feel like they're really contributing. And those are costs that you really can't measure, but they do apply to a business's success. And I think that these are things that can easily get overlooked. And I'm constantly thinking about this. as I'm implementing all of this, like how, once again, how am I making my content creators' lives better? How am I making them happier to come to work every day? Because happy employees are just, we all know the research, they're better employees.
And I love how passionate you are. That we spoke about this a few weeks ago, and you mentioned the book "Good to Great" from Germans, I
Good to
believe.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, Christy, reckons you read that if you're listening.
It's a
Tell
great
us a
book.
little about. Yeah, tell us a little. You mentioned the skill set that was needed, but the attitude. What should people look for when they're building such a team?
Oh my gosh. I mean, like, um, first and foremost, the right people. Warning, this is where I gush about my team. My
Please do.
we call them crews at Freeletics, and we all have really fun names. And since we're the web team, we're called Webtang Clan, like after Wu-Tang, which is like one of my favorite groups ever. But so when I got told like, hey, we're interviewing you to be the product manager for Webtang Clan, I was like, oh man, yeah, I've got to be in this place. This is great. Whoever came up with that name is a genius. It turned out to be my engineering manager, Shemek. So yeah, this team, they are by far, I think, of all the engineering teams I've worked with, they are by far the best. They are so passionate, they are so dedicated, and they're so particular about their work. I mean, so detail oriented. They just really know what they're doing, and I love working with them. And if you really want to just like go for moonshots, right? That's one of our company values is like Freeletics really strives for moonshots, then you need the right people. Like you mentioned, good to great. He uses the metaphor of getting the right people on the bus. And you get the right people on the bus because they will stick with you even when, things completely go to shit. They will stay with you. They will keep you, they will be on your side and they will be pursuing this goal. And those are the kind of people that you want, the ones that are absolutely relentless about pursuing, the goals that you've set out to achieve and finding a way to do it. And I really feel like I have that with my team because I bring them crazy ideas. And I don't get the, I don't know if we should do that. Instead, I get the, that's cool. Yeah, let's think about how to do this. And like never once have they blanched at, anything that I've proposed. They've always been really open to hearing and going, yeah, let's explore that. Let's see what can happen here, what we can build.
So that excitement, that innovative eagerness is something you definitely keep on looking for.
Yeah, I think it's very particular when you're interviewing someone, but you need to have someone with, I think the very American word you can use here is gumption. You've got to have someone who's going to stick with it, who doesn't give up easy, who really wants to find an answer, who really wants to find a solution. You don't want people who are just going to, peace out at, the slightest sign of trouble. Yeah, I would definitely, if you're hiring and if you're building teams, I would definitely read Good to Great and read his section about getting the right people on the bus. It's really quite extraordinary for building a company. I really admire it. It's fantastic information.
Okay, you guys get Good to Great. I can subscribe. It's very, very good one as well. And that's how you make things automagically, I heard at Freeletics, right? By getting those guys to work together really well. Hey, one quick question. You did already have a headless CMS, you said. One of those promises of moving to the modern stack technology is that when you have made the move, switching out players is rather straightforward. Can you tell us a little bit about how the move went?
Yeah, pretty easy. It was really pretty easy. So we were on Contentful before, and it was just on the blog. So the move was really easy because we didn't do the move. So my team had to work on some really high priority business stuff, which was the release of our mindfulness audio coaching. And so we didn't have the capacity to move us from Contentful to Content Stack. And so we hired a company called Raw Engineering to do it. And they were pros. I mean, it was pretty much worry-free. Shimek, my engineering manager, and I, a lot of our capacity was filled like working with them and answering their questions. But in that also, we learned so much working with them about how to implement Content Stack. And it made it so much easier when we set out to move the rest of our content on Content Stack. But we hired them because we also had our contract coming to an end with Contentful, and we needed to do the move really quickly. And it was because it was unstructured data on one end and moving unstructured data to the other end, that made it really simple. Our WordPress, the WordPress migration was a little bit more difficult, but we also didn't have a lot of content with the WordPress. But yeah, I think like anyone who's going to be moving from something like WordPress, where you have like HTML and CSS embedded into your text and your images and wrapped around all of that, you have to understand that you're going to have to unwrap that. You're going to have to really untangle it and then put it into the new headless CMS. And I'm not going to lie, it's going to be a pain. It's a pain. But the gains that you will make are just astronomical. Because if you do get into a situation where, hey, you don't like the headless CMS you went with, it's going to be pretty easy to just move that structured data over, because you're not having it all tangled up in code anymore. You're just storing it completely separately from the code. And then it also frees up marketing to go and do great things like spinning up new channels and then distributing content that you already have stored to these new channels in order to test them and verify, like, hey, should we be trying this out? Is this a worthy channel for us to spend our money on acquisition for, without having to build up that content and remake it again and again and again? So what you might have for upfront costs is really going to set you up to excel in the long term. And
yeah, and concretely,
that's how I feel about
as you just said, 80% faster content, 60% faster development, and 60% cost savings. That is insane. But real quickly, if my notes don't escape me here, and I saw a question coming in from the audience, is it right that the move from Contentful to Content Stack only took 8 weeks end to end?
Yes, that's correct. And some of the details around it is we only moved our blog content there. So the actual migration was just done overnight. There was just a script written for that to migrate it. I think the majority of the time.
Sorry, can you just repeat that? The migration went overnight. I want to clap my hands.
I mean, well, yeah, because raw engineering just wrote a script and then ported the content over. And then so really, I think most of the 8 weeks was the setting up and making sure that we really understood what we were doing, moving from Contentful to Content Stack. And just understanding that we were structuring our blog articles correctly, right? And then the other half was just QAing it and making sure that everything was correct, because our blog was 5.5 years old when we did it, and some of those older articles were pretty sketchy. The structure was not working out really well, so we had to fix some of those older ones. But yeah, the newer ones, they ported over pretty easily. It wasn't very difficult at all. Now, I think if you have, what's going to happen is if you have a website that is completely on something like WordPress, SharePoint, something like that, and you're migrating over, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be a long-term commitment. But once again, you're setting yourself up for success down the road, and you're really reducing costs down the road. And you're just making it easier to scale. So you're, and that's what every business wants to do. We want to grow and scale. So, you have to make these hard trade-offs, and you have to be really aware of the trade-offs. So. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you're listening and you want to move over from WordPress or Sitecore or any of those, do give us a shout, because we do actually have partners that are specialized on just that, and very sharp on accelerating as much as possible. Cool. Let's go over very smoothly, Christy. Thank you very much for all that insight. There's a lot of questions in the Q&A.
Oh, yeah.
So why don't we just smoothly transition into that? If you're interested to learn more just about how Freeletics implemented Content Stack and how that contentful migration actually happened, the host team is going to share the case study with you in the chat right now, and we can also follow up with that later, so you can read that in your own time. Okay. Quick rapid fire set of questions, Christy. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. How big is your development and engineering team actually?
No, I get asked this all the time, actually. Okay, Pavel, Sandra, Maciek, Shimek, Mirek, 5. And then we have our agile coach.
Developers.
Yeah, then we have our agile coach, Lena, and then myself, and then Lauren, who is our UX designer. And so that's the full WebTang clan.
And with that, you manage this market leading app and website. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, the website portion and the content, and then our content
and
platform.
the content piece.
We handle those two things. Yes.
Yeah.
And
fantastic. There's a number of questions actually all around the same topic of the cost effectiveness of the CMS.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you impressed your leaders with a very solid business case. A number of different questions. I'll give you some of the nuances. How did you measure it? But also in detail, how did you build that ROI for a transition from, say, a homegrown situation, or let's take the WordPress situation, to a Mach stack?
I mean, we were definitely pressed because of the contract to make a decision, but what we did is we gathered requirements from all of our different stakeholders. We really started understanding what engineering needs, what our marketing needs, what our content creators need, what I need as a product manager. And then I also started thinking about the future, made a huge Excel list with Shimek and the rest of the team. And then we created a scoring of 1 to 5. And then I actually let my engineers go through, and I stepped back. Like we found 4 candidates, and then we had we'll call Contentful our control version. A/B testing joke, hilarious. And then I stepped back and let them do it and evaluate and go through evaluating everything. And because I knew I would have an internal bias to content stack because I had worked with it successfully at Blizzard. So when the numbers came back, when I had this pretty much as close to unbiased view as possible, it was content stack was the preferred CMS, and so we started talking with Tristan and talking about a contract and give me a proposal. And then I proposed my vision, and I'm not gonna lie, I have really great executives who are really supportive. And I told them my plan, and I said, this is what we really need to do, in my opinion, to grow Freeletics. We very much need, a content management system, and this is our best bet. And so, my CEO signed off on it, and we purchased it. So it was really easy. But then the hard part came when I did have to put my money where my mouth was, and so I had to show the advantages of all this work that we had done, and that was where I chose those 3 metrics of productivity, end-to-end cycle time, and cost effectiveness. I really went back to Kaizen methodology and Toyota manufacturing, and looking at the thinking of content really as a manufacturing process. Because I also think that content should be viewed as a business asset. right? And so manufacturing process and how you make things is definitely a business asset. And what you make is a business asset, right? So content should be viewed as a business asset. And that's why I also chose these 3 metrics, because I felt like it was a really good parallel there for showing the effectiveness of really creating maybe what some could call a content factory. So I think those metrics were really persuasive, like after we had moved our website over to Content Stack. And so those metrics have now allowed me to go on and build, or start exploring how we manage our app content in Content Stack. And I'm using those same metrics with our audio content to understand the effectiveness there as well, and make sure that we get those same gains. And so I've got this consistency showing to our executives that it's really easy for them to quickly understand. And I'm starting to see the same trend with our app content as I saw with the initial metrics that we're talking about right here and now. So that's cool.
So did you put a value on time, or was it a separate metric for the business case?
So that was productivity. I would put time into productivity, and yeah, I did measure it. I was looking at how long it took from when that Jira ticket, that work request hit us to when it was actually completed. I did think about like the application of 8-hour days. I did think of all of that as well. So, and then for specking out how long something like this might take, that was just a lot of conversations and a lot of asking questions to really get clarity on how long something like this would take. But we also broke it up into bite-sized chunks as well, starting just with the blog. And then we moved, another chunk of pages over, and then another chunk of pages on the home page, and just worked in small pieces to get it done.
Interesting. I hope Tara, Matt, and anonymous user that answered your question. If not, shoot another question in and I'll pick it up in a little bit. How do editors, so the content folks like the headless CMS, coming from the blog world, the question is specifically that typically they like to have like a what you see is what you get editor. How does that sit with them?
So far, so good. And then especially now that we've fully automated translation with Content Stack as well, it's even better because they no longer have to copy and paste like 6 to 10 languages like they used to. So now what we do is our editors put the English version into Content Stack, and using Content Stack workflows, we push it out to our translation service, which is TransFX. And then that gets done, and when it's done, it's pulled back and automatically put into, French and Italian and German and all of those different versions of the same piece of content. And so, I mean, that's pretty sweet, frankly. Like when I was doing that work, I would have loved something like that to never copy and paste again, and like reduce errors as well. And then now our translation team also can view the piece of content actually in staging, like as it should look on the website. And so they're not like looking at a wall of text anymore. They get to actually see how it's going to be presented on the website, which is absolutely awesome. It just makes their job so much easier. So
yeah. And it's interesting because with that volume content that you had and those language variations, probably the WYSIWYG part really just very far behind from the Localized.
I think, I mean, one of the things that I was explaining is that when you're using a WYSIWYG, it's so ridiculous that these days that people who are like writers, right? They're creators. They also have to understand how to code, because that's a fault of the CMS, right? It's sort of a crutch in order to use WordPress. So like Matthew's question, I mean, he's dealing with probably like a very legitimate use case. And I said, you're never going to have to code again. You're never going to have to like spend how many hours like adjusting, your code and then refreshing to see how it looks and adjusting it again until you finally just table flip and you're just like, oh, I hate my job, right? You're never going to have to do that again. So I think that really helped the transition away from the WYSIWYG to like, you're just filling out a form. That's all you have to do. And then we push it to QA and you take a look at it. And it's really simple to publish to QA and take a look at it.
Cool. Thank
Sorry.
you. I hope that answers your question, Matthew. There's more ambulance going past in
Sorry.
the background. That's okay. We can't hear it all that much.
Right.
So there is another question, and I'm hesitating to ask this because nobody will believe that this is not staged, but this is actually an audience question.
Okay.
Matthew is asking, what made you move from Contentful to Content Stack, and what would you say is the key USP of Content Stack?
Let me think. I wanna answer his question really thoughtfully. Okay. So at the time, and this was back in August, September, October, November of last year of 2019. Contentful, they didn't have versioning, so you weren't able to look at updates made, different versions. So like when you save something once, twice, three times, you couldn't tell any of the changes being made. And then also this was just fundamental. They didn't have scheduling. Like my editors, if they wanted to publish something at a certain time, like for PR, they had to work on the weekend and like wait and hang around to push the button to publish it, which frankly I thought was BS. You shouldn't be working on Saturday or Sunday, right? And I also feel like scheduling is a fundamental part of a CMS that it should have. Even WordPress has it. So that was a problem. And to be really fair to Contentful, they were working to release that, and they gave us a demo of it, but they couldn't tell us when they would be releasing it. And our contract was coming to an end in November, so that very much forced the situation. So that was one problem. There was also no concept of releases, and we do a lot of like nesting of content with the way that we work. And so in Contentful, you would have to publish, for the way we were working, you'd have to publish 15 different things individually. You couldn't group them together into like a bulk release and then release it all at once. And we really love that about Content Stack. Like for example, our audio courses, we'll have a course, and a course is something that's over time, right? You listen to the individual episodes like once a day, right? So in a course, there might be 7 episodes. If we're going to publish that, we want to, bulk release the course altogether. And we wouldn't have been able to do that with Contentful. And we can do that with Content Stack by grouping it together. There was also no workflows in Contentful, which there's no way we would have been able to automate translation, which is just an enormous value proposition for us. The fact that we were taking translation out of the hands of developers who were copying and pasting, which is not a developer's job. And developers were like QAing, localization. And so the workflows allow us to do that. So where we validate the English version, we get it approved, and then we push the English version out through a workflow, and it's all automated. And then it comes back, and everyone in the process is alerted to it. So yeah, the workflows were super, super powerful. And then I think probably modular blocks was also, like Shimmick loves modular blocks. Modular blocks is basically like an inline content type. And they were really, really enticing for us when we were looking at Content Stack. And we use them a lot now. So they make it a lot more flexible to mix and match your content. Whereas, and you don't have to create them as a content type. They're completely separate. Whereas in Contentful, if we wanted to do that, it would have to be a content type. And so also at that time, and I don't know if they've changed this, Contentful limited you on content types. So one blog article might be like 15 different content types in Contentful, whereas in Content Stack, it's just one content type. So that was really, really great. For the actual value prop, I'll just go back and say like the workflows right now, that may change. But the thing that's freshest in my mind is the localization work we did, which was just such awesome, awesome work. Like the impact to the company has been crazy. And the workflow, it wouldn't have been possible without the workflow option. So yeah, I hope that answers the question, gives you enough information, Matthew.
Beautifully so. And one quick one in there because it ties in the translation, and then we've got all the questions done, which is exciting. The translation service you're using, I assume you did that via APIs and webhooks. Is that right?
Yeah, we definitely use webhooks. Like we're happy to talk about it. I know I started a Slack channel for Content Stack users, so if you want to get in, like just talk about stuff with us, you can find me on LinkedIn, and I can invite you and we can talk about it. And we've got stuff on GitHub that we can, we're happy to share. We've got some different things that we've built that we also need to submit to you guys as well in GitHub for other people to use. So, but yeah, definitely API webhook. If you're a fan of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the service that we use to connect Content Stack to our translation service, we called it Kerbanog, the killer rabbit. So like literally in the code, it's called Kerbanog. So yeah, we call it killer rabbit really whenever we're referring to the service.
So clearly you all need to join that Slack channel, if not to ask Christy questions about Content Stack, then to get her support on how to name your projects. Because
we have really good project names.
Nailed that. You did, didn't you? Christy, this was fantastic. This was super interesting. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
To all of you who joined to listen in, if you had an interesting time, I hope this helped you clarify a few questions you may have had. We will follow up and we'll share with you the recording. And if you like, we can also show you a little bit more about Content Stack and those USPs that you asked for in the chat here. Christy, it would be fantastic if we could share that Slack channel that Content Stack users can join. Yeah. And with that, thank you, Christy. Thank you, y'all. Have a great day or a great evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. Thank you very much.